Hello everyone, and welcome to Madness U by Madness Labs. This is Bobby. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about package managers. So what is a package manager would be the obvious first question. A package manager is a way of managing code dependencies in a project. So for instance, in your front end, you might have libraries or different plugins to do different functionalities like carousels, video players, anything of that manner. It's just JavaScript, CSS code that you have to pull into your project. And if you've done it manually or if you're doing it manually, it's a real pain in the ass and it makes your life hell when a new version comes out. And I mean, same thing with PHP. There's different libraries for sending emails or accessing certain server functionality. And when new versions come out, things break and it's very difficult and the files are all named the same. We've all been there. So package managers are a way of resolving all those problems with usually a command line interface that allows you to easily install dependencies depending on your language. So to utilize most of these, you're going to have to install Node. Node, if you haven't already heard of this or installed it, go over to Node.js.org and download this on your computer. Node is a JavaScript web server built on the Chrome JavaScript engine. So it's using the V8 engine from Chrome to render JavaScript to do server-side coding. And the real bonus to this is that it allows you to run non-blocking code. So as where PHP and other server-side languages like to stop in their chain of executing code, this allows multiple strings of code to run simultaneously. And if it has to upload a file or do something of that sort, it doesn't stop. It just keeps running through the code. Much like the JavaScript in your browser does. So go to Node, grab that, and then whenever you're ready, we can move on to looking at two package managers besides Node. It's got its own built-in Node package management system. But besides that, we're going to be looking at Bower, a neat little tool by Twitter that allows you to pull client-side dependencies much in the same way that Node lets you pull down JavaScript server dependencies. And then we'll also not talk too much, but a little bit about Composer. It is a PHP dependency manager. It's much akin to Node except without the web server piece. It's just the package manager pulls down dependencies. Okay, so I'm assuming you've got Node installed. So the first thing you'll need to do is install Bower. And to do that, we run that npm command from Node. And that's the Node package manager install, being that we're going to install the package. And then a -g, which this is actually telling it that this is a global package. So this is going to be something that we can utilize across the board, actually in our command line by using this Bower phrase here. So this is going to install Bower. And actually I already have it installed. You can check an installation of any kind of plugin like this by simply going into your command line and running the command bower-v, and this will tell you the version that your software is on. We can also do this with npm. It's going to tell us the version. Same thing with Node. So Bower's up and running. It's installed. This is great because now we're going to be able to make these server-side dependencies work for us with Node, and our client-side dependencies work for us with Bower. So you have a couple options when you're going to actually install your dependencies for a project. Here in Sublime, I have an empty folder I made for Madness U, and I'm just wanting to throw a basic website together. I could either put the file inside of here, the Bower file or the package file from Node, or I can actually use the command line again to actually start these with the actual tools via command. So Here we'll do a node init, or sorry, npm init. Okay, and basically this is going to run you through a command line installation, and we can actually just answer all these questions, or in our case we're just going to next all the way through them. And basically it's just all the information about this project if you wanted to actually put your project out on the Node package manager system. So there you go. That right there is the JSON it's going to write to the package file. And this is basically what's going to tell Node what packages and what things that we depend on to actually use this project. So don't be worried if you're a little confused still. I'm going to make it all clear here very, very shortly. So now over here in Sublime, you'll see that we have this package.json, and there's that JSON that we saw earlier from the command prompt. Basically, it uses this JSON file to parse and figure out what dependencies your project has. And we can use the npm install command to actually install dependencies. Like for instance, if we wanted to use gulp on this project, we could npm install gulp, and it's actually going to pull down into this node modules folder, and there's all of the dependencies for us to actually run gulp. And gulp is just a compiler, and we'll talk about that more in future videos. So we can run that same command, and this time running --save, and this is actually going to save this dependency inside of our package file, so that way if someone else pulls down this project off of Git, it will actually know that gulp is a dependency and it needs to be installed automatically by running npm install. So for instance, if I delete this node modules folder and I start from scratch again, I've still got this dependencies gulp underneath my package file. So now I can run npm install in the directory where that package.json lives, and you'll notice it's going to pull down the exact same files that we just had deleted. So this is great for storing a bunch of things that you use to compile your code or do different things that you might need on the server, or on the client side when you're, on your client when you're actually debugging your code and testing your code, compiling to see your changes. All of that can be done, and none of that code goes out to the Git repository, so it keeps your code very small and minimalistic. And so, Node is going to do that for your server-side things, like testing your code, doing linting, and compiling your code. But Bower is going to do that same thing for you on the client side. So it's going to allow you to install jQuery, Angular, Twitter Bootstrap, Font Awesome. It's going to allow you to install all those libraries and not actually have to push them and keep them revisioned and everything like that inside of your repo. So this way you can keep it very minimalistic. So now that we have a package.json, let's go ahead and jump into the Bower side. So assuming that you've already Node installed Bower, we should be able to run Bower init in the exact same way that we ran npm init, and it's going to give us its initialization, the same set of questions basically, and it's going to generate a JSON file much in the same manner. And again, you can answer these or not. It's just for storing the actual repository inside of Twitter's Bower database. Okay, so now you'll see that we have generated a lump of JSON, much like with Node, and it will create us a bower.json file. And this is going to allow us to do the exact same thing. We can put dependencies underneath this JSON and actually tell it different libraries, like for instance jQuery. Or like before, we can go into the command and use it here. So we can say bower install jQuery. And in the same manner, we're going to pass in save at the end. And now it will go out, get the newest version of jQuery, and automatically will create a Bower components directory. And underneath it, you will see jQuery, and you will see the minified, the unminified, the map, and even the source files. This is a simple concept, seemingly, but this is a giant game changer when you talk about workflow and as far as the overhead on your project. So where you used to have all of these dependencies and all these different libraries, and you had to figure out how to store them and where to put their files and their images and all the other things, now it's gotten very simple where you run a couple commands and it actually pulls down all the dependencies from online, the freshest, newest versions, or the versions that you've set inside of your files, and it'll make sure that everything is going to stay concurrent across the board, and it's going to keep your repo very small, which is all very important stuff. So we've scratched the surface with these two, and I really encourage you to go look on bower.io at the documentation, get a little bit more familiar. They also have a great package searching feature here where you can actually search through. Mind you, anything you find on GitHub can be installed with Bower. And also check out Node.js's documentation on their website. It gets a lot more in depth. You can actually, it's a full web server. It's not just a package manager. That's just what I'm covering in this specific tutorial. Okay, so I told you we would cover a little bit about Composer, so I want to just touch on it. This is another really, really great tool for doing dependency management with PHP. So, for instance, if you do mailing with SwiftMail or SendGrid or MailChimp or something like that, they have their own package manager with PHP that you can actually, there's a download button here. You click in, you can download. There's one line you run in command on Linux, and either one will get you the Composer tool, and it's run in the exact same way. So by having Composer installed, you can actually run to the command line, and this time run Composer init, and the exact same thing. And now we have a Composer JSON file, and it is the exact verbatim process over and over again. This one specifically being for PHP files. So for instance, if we want to do Composer install SwiftMailer, I think it is. Okay, I think that's right. They actually automatically save in Composer your dependencies. Okay, sorry, they changed the syntax. It looks like it's Composer require. So you run Composer require and then the package name, in this case being MailChimp, and then it's going to ask you for a version. And then now you'll see it actually has updated our JSON, and now it's requiring MailChimp at the version I requested, which is the bleeding edge. And it's going to then make a vendor, I believe it's a vendor directory. It's going to make a vendor directory, and it's going to have all of the dependencies for PHP underneath it. So there you go. This is a very, very brief overview about these very, very complex tools. The next time I post a video, we're actually going to go over how to create compiling. So maybe using some of these tools to actually then compile into our main CSS file, our main JavaScript file. So kind of bringing a little bit of this stuff full circle so that you can kind of see how to kind of take these different little pieces and put them together into a process that'll help make your life very, very easy. So there you go. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much, but hopefully you learned a little bit about dependency managers and why they are the greatest thing that's happened since developing itself. So, all right, well, hope you guys had fun and learned a little something. I will see you next week on Madness U.